Good morning, all. In the last class, we have started our discussion on C++. So, we told that this is the agenda which we are going to deal in the first unit, where we'll discuss the differences between C and C++, and then we'll go through the evaluation of C++, and then the differences between the procedure-oriented programming and object-oriented programming. And we'll end up this topic with key concepts, with a brief discussion on key concepts of object-oriented programming, right? So, and we'll also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of object-oriented programming. So, WOOP is nothing but a short form or an acronym for object-oriented programming. So, before going to the actual agenda of our discussion, let me have a brief overview of what this procedure oriented programming is and why we are shifting from the procedure oriented programming to the object oriented programming, right? This part we have completed earlier, but to have a just recap of what we have learned in the last class, right? So procedure oriented programming means, as I told, that it is a programming approach or it is a programming paradigm where it is oriented towards the procedures. That means whenever a task is given for the user, he thinks of solving or he thinks of giving the solution for that particular problem in terms of functions. Procedures means procedures are nothing but functions. There is the other name for procedure is functions, and they can also be called as routines. So when you think of a solution for a particular problem in terms of functions, we call it as the procedure oriented programming. One of the best example for the procedure oriented programming is the C programming language, which we have learned earlier, right? Other than that, we have Pascal, and all these things comes under procedure oriented programming. So if you come across a term called procedure oriented programming, you just remember that you are going to give the solution for the problems in terms of functions. That's it, nothing more than that, right? So you make functions or you write function code for the function and you call them and you execute them, thereby you will get the solution, right? This is the example which we have discussed earlier. For example, if you have a program that consists of 3 tasks, one is the reading, and second one is making some calculations, and the third one is printing the result. All these 3 tasks can be done either by using a single function, or you can make use of 3 different functions to perform these 3 different tasks, that is reading, calculation, and printing. So everything you think of in terms of functions in the procedure oriented program. But this is very simple to learn, but the disadvantage of the procedure oriented programming is this particular programming paradigm does not meet the requirements to solve the real world problems. Real world problems, for example, if you want to take an object called car, right? Car is something which we come across in the daily life, right? So if you want to write some programs for the car, which consists of some entities and procedures. Entities are nothing but data, right? Which consists of some data to be recorded for that particular object or for that particular entity, and procedures are the functions which is implemented to work on that data, right? So this is what the object oriented programming is. So if you want to really build a real world project, like the examples car, bus, or book, what it may be, right? For those type of real world problems, the tools or the constructs that are available in procedure oriented programming is not suitable to solve these problems, right? So we need some extra tools, we need some extra concepts. For this purpose, Brian Strostrup, he is the inventor of the C programming language. We'll see all these things in the evolution of C++ language, right? Brian Strostrup, he has developed this C++ language to meet the requirements of developing the projects or developing the software for the real world entities, right? So if somebody asks you what for the object-oriented programming has been implemented, even though although we have this procedure-oriented programming, so you can give a simple answer that the procedure-oriented programming does not support the concepts to build the programs for the real-world objects. So we need some extra tools and constructs which are available in the object-oriented programming. This is the base for developing the object-oriented program, right? So we'll see a real-world example where we'll see the concepts that are supported by this object-oriented programming, and by looking at different scenarios of this particular real-world example, we can understand how this object-oriented programming is going to meet the requirements of developing the real-world objects, and how it is going to overcome the difficulties that we come across in the procedure-oriented programming. So we are going to listen carefully. We are going to differentiate two programming paradigms. We will give a clear differentiation between these two programming paradigms in the coming slides, but here is an example where we will come across different scenarios, and we will come to understand how this object-oriented programming overcomes the difficulties of procedure-oriented programming, right? So by this point, you might have understood that there are two programming paradigms in the programming world. What are those two programming paradigms? One is the procedure-oriented programming, and the second one is the object-oriented programming. Is something we deal with the C programming language and Pascal, where we write the solutions in terms of functions. But this does not have the sufficient requirements or sufficient strength to develop the real-world project. So in such scenarios, we have another programming paradigm that was developed to meet the requirements of developing the real-world objects, which is called as object-oriented programming, right? So let us take a real-world example where we have a vehicle parts manufacturing industry, and they want to have an online inventory system. Inventory system means it consists of all the products or all the parts that are manufactured by that particular company, right? So they want to make this inventory system online. They want to go for the online system. So the boss has instructed the programmers to develop separate forms, or for a website he wants to develop separate forms, one form for cars and another form for trucks, right? So let us see what these cars and trucks have. That means what entities or what data the cars and trucks will consist of. That's right. So for cars, we need to record the following information, like the color of the car and the engine size of the car and the transmission type, like automatic or manual, and the number of doors. So here we have four entities that are that we need to record for the car's product. And for trucks, the information that is to be recorded is color of the truck, and the engine size, the transmission type, and then we have cab size and towing capacity. So we have 5 different entities for the trucks entity, and from these 2 different scenarios or 2 different cars and trucks, we can observe that there are three entities which are common to both of them. That is the color, the engine size, and the transmission type. These 3 entities are common for both the cars and trucks. We'll see what happens if we want to develop this real world example using POP and OOP, right? POP stands for procedure oriented programming, and WOOP stands for object oriented programming, right? So we'll see different scenarios, what happens in POP and what happens in WOOP. Let us take the first scenario where we need to suddenly add one more form, which is for bus, right? So for that, assume that the bus has to record the entities like color, engine size, transmission type, and number of passengers. Here it requires 4 entities, and if you observe carefully, the first 3 entities, that is the color, engine size, and transmission type, are similar to that of cars and trucks. Is it right or not? These 3 entities are similar to that of cars and trucks. So what happens if I want to add a new form for bus in case of procedure-oriented programming and in case of object-oriented programming? So in case of procedure-oriented programming, even though we have 2 different forms for cars and trucks, whenever a new entity or new item has to be added, one new form has to be added for bus, we need to recreate the entire form. This is the disadvantage we have. So we have to recreate the entire form starting from the scratch. So we have some repetitions that occur for the code, which is for color, engine size, and transmission type. So there is no reusability of the code in the procedure-oriented programming, right? So whatever new entity you want, whatever new form you want to add, you have to start writing the code from the scratch, right? So when we go for the when we want to add a new form, bus form, by making use of the object-oriented programming, what we will do is we will have a concept called as inheritance. We have a concept called inheritance in OOPS, where we will extend one class to other different classes, right? So we are calling this term as extension. We can extend the vehicle class. Vehicle class is something we have described. We'll see all these things, how to define a class and how to activate the class and how to create these objects. All these things we'll discuss. But don't worry, at this point of time, you just remember that you have developed a vehicle class which consists of entities like color, engine size, and transmission type. And you can extend this particular vehicle class to any number of other classes. So you can extend this vehicle class to cars. You can extend this vehicle class to trucks, and similarly you can extend it to bus or whatever it may be. Any number of classes you can extend from this particular vehicle class. So we are going to reuse the same code. We are going to reuse the same code, right? So this is how the OOPS is something different from the procedure-oriented programming, right? So OOPS is having the concept of inheritance, where we can extend one particular class to any number of classes. The main advantage of this extension, or the main advantage of this inheritance, is we are going to reuse the same thing, right? So the programmer stress will be reduced. The programmer efforts will be reduced to some extent. This is the main advantage we get from the object-oriented programming when compared to that of procedure-oriented programming. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Now we'll go to the second scenario, right? So second scenario says that instead of storing color in the database like we previously did, for some reason my client wants the color emailed to him, right? He wants the color entity to be emailed to him, right? So in procedure oriented programming, you have to make modifications to how many forms? How many forms we have right now? We have 3 forms: cars, trucks, and bus. Right. So whenever you use the procedure oriented programming, you have to make changes for the cars, and you have to make changes for the trucks, and you have to make changes for the bus separately. You have to make necessary changes for all these entities, or for all these functions, or for all these data types, and you have to mail them separately, right? And what happens when you make use of object oriented programming, right? We know in object oriented programming we have a concept called as inheritance, where we have developed a class called as vehicle. This is my vehicle class. So from vehicle class, I have extended the cars. Similarly, I have extended the, what is the other thing? Trucks, and I have extended the bus also, right? So whatever modifications I want to make modifications, and this vehicle consists of how many entities? The common entities are placed inside this vehicle. So what are the common entities we have? One is color. What about the second one?
Engine size.
Right, engine size. What about the third one?
Transmission type.
Number of doors.
No. This is transmission type. Common entities are these three: color, engine size, and transmission.
Transmission
So
type.
what I will do is I will make these three entities to be enclosed inside this vehicle class. So I can extend this vehicle class with cars, trucks, and buses. So what happens when you extend this vehicle class for these three classes means whatever entities we have, this is color, engine size, and transmission type, they are also inherited to these three different classes. No need to write separate things, right? So, but this doesn't happen in procedure-oriented programming. Everything will have a separate sheet. Everything will have a separate form. So whenever you want to change the color, you change the color of car, you change the color of truck, you change the color of bus. But in object-oriented programming, since the vehicle class is having all these entities, so whenever you want to make a change of color entity, you just have to change one entity that is inside the vehicle. Right? You change the color entity in vehicle, it is automatically inherited to cars, trucks, and buses. You change the entity engine size, it will be automatically changed inside this cars, trucks, and buses. Similarly, you change transmission type in vehicle class, it is automatically inherited to cars, trucks, and buses. Right? So it is how the object-oriented programming performs better than the procedure-oriented programming. So any modification you perform, you just make the modification in the vehicle class. We'll see what that vehicle class is called and what is the terminology for this cars, trucks, and buses. All these things we'll see. Don't worry. Right. Now let us move to the third scenario where we want to make a generic car. Right. So previously we have this vehicle class and we have this cars extended from vehicle, and similarly trucks extended from this vehicle, and bus extended from this vehicle. But now my present scenario is asking me, or it is forcing me to generate a generic car to the specific makes. For example, take Nissan or Creta. Right? So generic means, what do you mean by generic? Common, or it is generalized thing, right? Car is a generalized term, but Creta is a specific term. Nissan is a specific term, right? Similarly, Mahindra is a specific term, right? So these are called as specific things, and we can extend it to the generic terms also. So what happens if you want to move from a generic car to a specific make, like Nissan or Creta? So if you follow the procedure-oriented programming, we create a new form for each make. So you create a new form for Nissan, you create a new form for Creta, and then you have to repeat all the code for from the generic car, right? And you have to add it to the you have to add that code to the specific to each make. That means even though you have cars entity or you have the cars class, and whenever you want to make it specific, right? You want to make a Nissan car, you want to make a Creta car, you cannot extend this. Why? Because procedure-oriented programming does not support the concept of inheritance. So whenever you want to make a specific car, Nissan, again you start it from the scratch. Again you have to start it from the scratch, and you have to develop, or you have to rewrite the entire code which you have written for the car. Similarly, if you want to make a specific item called Creta, again you have to write the entire code even though it is written for Nissan and car. So this is how the programmer finds difficulty with the procedure oriented programming, right? But when you follow the object oriented programming, what happens is you simply extend the car class. So here you extend it to Nissan, and then you can extend it to Creta, right? So these are the specific classes, and this is the generic class. So you can get the specific classes from the generic class by making use of the inheritance concept, right? And nothing to be repeated, and nothing to be repeated. Thereby, you will get some. You means the programmer will get some relaxation from the coding part, right? Is it clear up to this point?
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
And now coming to the last scenario where we find a bug in the transmission type. What is this transmission type? What is this transmission type? Anybody please respond. What is the transmission type?
Vehicle class.
Are you listening to class?
Yes, sir.
Vehicle is transmitted from completion process, sir.
No. What are the entities we have in vehicle class?
Color, engine size, transmission type, sir.
Color, engine size, and transmission type.
Transmission
Right.
type.
I told you that transmission type can be either automatic or manual.
Manual.
Right. So the transmission type is an entity in the vehicle class. These are the three entities in the vehicle class. So when you find bug in the transmission type, that means when you find bug in this particular entity, which is one of the entities of the vehicle class, what you have to do if you follow a procedure oriented programming, and what you have to do if you follow the object oriented program, right? So what happens when you follow the procedure oriented programming is we have to open and update each and every form, right? So why we need to update each and every form? Because in procedure oriented programming, what is happening here is we have car, we have vehicle, what is that one? Other one?
Truck, sir.
Trucks, and we have bus. These are three different entities, right? These are three different objects. And car will have its own color entity, and it will have its own engine size, and it will have its own transmission type. Similarly, truck will have its own color, its own engine size, and its own transmission type. Similarly, bus will have its own color, engine size, and transmission type. So if there is a bug in the transmission type, what you have to do? You have to make modification in the transmission type of car. You have to make modification in the transmission type of truck, and you have to make the modification of the transmission type in bus. So 3 times you have to repeat the same task. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But what happens when you follow the object oriented programming is in object oriented programming we don't have different forms, right? Instead of that, we have the vehicle class, and we have an extension for the car, truck, and bus, right? So this vehicle consists of color and engine size and transmission type. So if there is a bug in this particular transmission type, what entity you have to modify? You just go to the transmission type entity of the vehicle and you modify it. Thereby it will be automatically updated to all the cars, trucks, and buses. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So whatever change you make in the entity of this vehicle class, that will be perpetuated throughout all the subclasses which are inherited from this vehicle class. Is it simple or not?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right. So that's all about the why we are going to shift our scenario from the procedure-oriented programming to the object-oriented programming with a real-world example. Right. I have taken a real-world example, and these are the reasons why we have discussed 4 scenarios, and we made a point that these are the scenarios where these are the. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the 4 scenarios we have discussed, and we have raised some points, thereby giving some brief distinction between object-oriented programming and procedure-oriented programming. Right. So why we need to switch to C++? Right. It supports object-oriented approach to the programming. That means it supports classes, it supports inheritance, it supports polymorphism, it supports exceptions. So other than this, we have other object-oriented concepts which we'll discuss in the next coming class. And these are very powerful concepts that are supported by the object-oriented programming to develop the reliable software. Right. Though you can develop the reliable software using procedure-oriented programming, the procedure-oriented programming lacks in support of developing the programs which simulate the real world object. Right. To simulate the real world objects, we need these concepts: classes, inheritance, polymorphism, exception, data hiding, encapsulation, data binding. All these things we need to know, right? So all these are the extra concepts that are supported by object oriented programming, right? So it also provides powerful features on top of the fast language. What is this fast language? So it is C++, right? So now coming to how we need to switch to C++. Whenever you learn a new programming language, you need to learn the main differences between the already existing programming languages and the new programming language, right? So the C++ has new tools to learn. It has some new compilers, it has some new debuggers, it has some new linker. All these things, there are some extra tools that are available. So you need to learn all those things. Right. Don't go deep into this thing. Right. You should know what is what. That's it. Right. And there are some new libraries that are supported for this C++. So even though the already existing libraries, what do you mean by library in programming language? Anybody please respond?
Predefined functions.
Yeah, it consists of some predefined functions, macros, and all these things, right? So in C programming language, we have a concept called as header file, which have an extension of .h, right? So these header files are kept inside the libraries, right? So even though the C++ supports the already existing C libraries, it has some new libraries that are added to C++. So you should know what these libraries are, what new libraries have been added to this C++, right? Again, I'm saying never go deep into this concept, right? You should know that, okay, this is the library we need to add to our program whenever we want to use the cout and cin. All these things you should know. That's it, right? Similarly, we have some new file naming conventions. We have some new syntaxes. We have some new standards that are available for this C++. All these things are new things which you need to keep track of it. Don't learn deep concepts about these things. Nothing is useful here, right? And you need to, this is very important, and you need to rethink the programming approach. What is the programming approach we are accustomed for? The programming approach is procedure oriented programming, where you give solutions in terms of functions, right? But now we are moving into a new programming approach. New programming paradigm is required. That is called as object-oriented programming. So you have to rethink the programming approach. Don't go with the old programming style of procedure-oriented programming, right? You need to think of everything in terms of classes. You need to think of everything in terms of objects. How you can implement the polymorphism, how you can implement the data hiding. All these things are required, right? So if you learn these new terms or if you learn these new concepts, it will be very easy to switch to C++. Right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
sir.
please stop me whenever the time is up, right?
So, some people are trying to connect to class and then unable to do anything. They're asking what to do.
Maybe they have the problem in their web browsers, right? Previously, they have joined the class or not?
They have done so.
Then there will be a problem from their end only. So once the invitation has been sent and they're able to join in one conference and not able to join in the other conference, means they have to check their cookies, they have to clear their history, all these things they have to do.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So you please stop me whenever the time is up, right? So coming to the new tools for C++, we have the compilers called G++ or CC, right? CC is a new compiler that is designed for this C++, that is designed to compile the C++ program. Similarly, we have different debuggers like GDB, DBX, CVD, and all these things are there, right? Similarly, as I told that all the C libraries will work with C++, but there are some C++ specific libraries which you should know what type of libraries are available and what kind of libraries we need to incorporate in our program for developing the C++ program. Right, very simple thing, don't worry about it. While you practice the original C++ program, you will come to know all these things, not an issue, right? And coming to new file naming conventions, right? As I told that the header file in C programming language will have an extension of .h and the C programming will have an extension of .c. But these extensions have been changed to the C in C++. So in order to identify a header file, it has an extension called .hh. Similarly, in order to identify a C++ program, it has an extension of .cc, right? So .cc is exclusively used in Unix, I think, right? But there are other extensions for a C++ program, which is .cpp. This is very convenient for us, right? Why? Because C++, if you take the acronym, it is CPP. So any name you give xyz.cpp. So we can assume that this is a C++ program, right? Similarly, we can have an extension of .cxx also, right? Forget about this cxx and all these things. Either you can name the C++ program either with .cpp or .cc. Both are convenient, right? But most probably we'll go with this .cpp one, right? Now coming to the new syntaxes. Almost all the syntaxes for the C programming language remains the same in C++, right? But there are few new concepts that are added in object-oriented programming C++. So you need to know those features and you need to know those syntaxes, right? For example, if you want to declare an integer variable, how do you do it in C? It is int space variable name. So the similar thing happens in C++ also. If you want to declare an integer variable, you go it like this, int space x. So the syntax remains the same for them. But whenever you have a new concept like a class, when you want to declare a class or when you want to define a class, what is the syntax for defining a class? And when you want to declare an object for the class, what is the syntax? All these new syntaxes should be learned by the programmer. Right. And these are some standards. So we have some C standards that are available, ANSI, ANSI 98, all these things are available, right? But similarly, we have some standards that are available for the C++ also. We call that standard document as ISO IEC 14882, and it was developed in 1997. And we have a lot of changes for this standard document also, right? Don't worry about this standard documents, all these things, nothing to do about this. But you should know that for any programming language, there exists some standardization, there exists some standard document. For C, we have standard document. For C++, we have some standard document. And for C++, the standard document is named after this ISO IEC 14882. Right. Just know that there exist some standard documents for each and every program. That's it. Right. And coming to some questions about C. What is C? It's a low-level, procedure-oriented systems programming language. Can anybody tell me why C has been implemented? What is the reason behind the development of C programming language? You learned the C programming language, right?
So,
Yeah, please tell me what made the C programming language to come into the world? Yeah, please respond. Have you learned the C programming language?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Some
Yeah, you might have learned why the C programming has come into existence.
Mm,
Can anybody tell me? If you don't know, just tell me that you don't know. That's it. We'll proceed. Nothing wrong in it.
C program is a procedure language, sir.
Okay, it is a procedure language. But my question is, what is the reason for C coming into existence? We have the previous language like assembly language and machine language. But C is a somewhat we call it as high level language or low level language, whatever it may be. But it came into existence for one particular reason. What is that reason?
User friendly.
What is that?
It's easier to understand and more user friendly.
No, that's not the problem. Okay, I will tell the reason. Right. The answer lies in the slide itself. Right. We have initially in 1970s the developers or the programming team, they want to develop a new operating system called as Unix. Right. So what is this Unix called? It is a system program. Is it a system program or a software program? It is also a software, but this is called as a system program. Why? Because operating systems like Unix, Linux, Red Hat Linux, and Windows XP, Windows 10, Windows 8, all these things are called as operating systems, right? And these come under the category of system programs. So system programs means that this particular software is being utilized by the system components. Whenever you want to run the program or whenever you want to boot the system, these system programs are very, very important, or they play a crucial role, right? So in order to develop the Unix programming language, initially they have started coding this Unix operating system, right? What do you mean by operating system? Is it a software or hardware?
Software.
Where, sir?
Super. It is a software. What do you mean by software? It is nothing but collection of programs. Is it right or not?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Collection of programs is called as software. So whenever the developers started developing this Unix operating system, they started developing this software. So they started writing these programs using assembly language. Assembly language. What do you mean by assembly language? Do you know into how many categories the programming languages are categorized? 3 categories. One is the low level, another one is assembly language, and the third category is what we are using right now. It is high level, right? Low level means it is also called as machine level language, where we'll express everything in terms of zeros and ones. Assembly language means we'll use mnemonics, right? For addition, we'll use the command like add. For subtraction, we'll use the command like sub. For multiplication, we'll use the command like mul. So these are called as mnemonics, right? But this is simpler when compared to that of low-level language. But the disadvantage of assembly language is they are machine dependent. Have you heard of this term machine dependent?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard of this term machine dependent?
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by machine dependent language? What do you understand by the term machine dependent? So it is dependent, as I told in the first class itself, whenever you don't know anything about a particular word, you just go from the right hand side to the left hand side, right? So it is
It is
dependent
dependent on
on
machine.
machine. What do you mean by dependent on machine? Means it is dependent on the underlying architecture, right? The simple reason I will give. So we have different machines, like we have different motherboards, like so we have different machines like 8085, 8086, 80 something XX, something 80YY. So these are all the different hardware we have, right? 8085 is a hardware, 8086 is a hardware. So it is machine dependent, means the program depends, the assembly language depends on the machine. That means when you write a program for the 8085, you have written one assembly code, right? A.S for 8085. It will run only on the 8085. And when you try to run this A.S on 8086, it will not work. And similarly, if you write a program for this 8086 and you try to execute it on 80XX, it will not work. So it depends. So whatever programs you write in the assembly language, they need to be written for that particular underlying hardware only, right? So they will work on that particular hardware only. If you try to execute it on the other hardware, it will not work. It will raise some errors, right? So this is called as
Machine dependent.
machine dependent, right? So they tried, the developers, they tried to develop this Unix programming using assembly language, and since it is machine dependent, they failed in developing this Unix. So they thought of developing a new programming language which does not depend on these machines, or which does not depending on the underlying hardware. So they developed this C programming language. So that is the birth secret of this C programming language, right? So the C programming language is exclusively developed for developing the system programming language which is Unix. So ఎప్పుడు C పుట్టిందంటే కనుక when the C has born means when the developers try to develop an operating system called, or a programming software which is called as Unix. They found it difficult to develop the Unix operating system using assembly language. Therefore, they tried to develop a new programming language. Then they developed a new programming language called C in 1970, right? But it is very fast, it is flexible, and all these things, you know, it is very simple to learn, right? And what about C++? C++, what is this plus plus? What is this plus plus in C?
Extension.
What is this plus plus?
Means the extension.
Increment operator, right?
Yes, sir.
So A plus plus
Yes, sir.
means it is nothing but A is A plus 1, right? So the name has been given like this. C plus plus means it is just an extension to C. So C plus plus is an extension to C that provides support for object-oriented programming, right? Even though we simply say that it is an extension to C, but it supports a number of concepts, number of features are supported because they have implemented this object-oriented programming. They have incorporated this object-oriented programming in this C. So C++ is just an extension, right? So what type of problems did it solve? So according to Stroudstep, who is this Stroudstep?
He
Who
developed
is this
C.
Stroudstep? He is the developer of C++, right? So actually he developed this C++ as a PhD program, as a submission for the, he wants to get his PhD degree. So he started working on C and he wants to extend that C with classes. So initially he named this programming language as C with classes. After that, they have changed this name to C++. This we will learn when we come across this evolution of C++, right? Don't worry about it. So the Beyond Stroudstep states that I have built this C++ as a bridge over which people would pass from traditional programming style. What is the traditional programming style? Is it pop or whoop?
Uh,
What is traditional programming? It is pop, right? So he wants, the startup wants to make the programmers to move from the traditional programming, that is pop, to another programming paradigm which is called as whoop, object oriented programming, right? Is it clear?
clear, sir.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
So this is the end of our today's session, and tomorrow or in the next class, we will start our actual syllabus from C versus C++, and then we'll discuss the differences between the object-oriented programming and procedure-oriented programming, and then we'll discuss the evolution of C++, and then we'll end up with discussing the concepts of object-oriented programming. Right. So is it clear?
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the
Yes,
end
sir.
of today's session.
Yes, sir.
1 minute. Let me